national government to prioritise agriculture. Eluh Tondop to fix troubled Southern Highlands. And Tewai-Siassi joint operation retrieves lost district vehicles.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us for Monday's news. The agriculture sector has been promised priority funding, with Prime Minister Peter O'Neill re-emphasising the government's focus on agriculture in the second Eluh Accord. Speaking at the opening of the inaugural National Agriculture Summit in Port Moresby today, O'Neill acknowledged the mistakes of past governments, whilst also calling for more closer collaboration between the public and private sector during this term of government. At the opening session of the inaugural National Agriculture Summit, participants were reminded of the national government's commitment to growing the agriculture sector in a more inclusive way going forward. According to Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, mistakes had been made in recent years within the agriculture sector. However, the current government, through the second Eluh Accord, recognized the need to remove impediments within agriculture, especially with the majority of Papua New Guineans reliant on this sector.
We have to learn from the mistakes that we have made. Some silly programs that we have wasted so much money that we don't have and we cannot afford to make. This is a long-term investment. Agriculture is not a simple industry. It takes years for crops to grow, and of course for the investments, return on the investments to be received by the investors. So we need to provide that security. We hear so many times. And we are a unique country in the world. 97% of our land is owned by our people.
For Agriculture and Livestock Minister Benny Allen, this summit was an indication of the government's commitment to fulfilling the second Eluh Accord, a demonstration of the government's willingness to listen and work together with the private sector.
The agricultural sector must also set the basis for more domestic processing of our raw materials or raw products, so that we must create more employment and value-added products in our country.
The inaugural event had been organized with the view to get input from the private sector, particularly given that private enterprise continued to be the driving force within agriculture. And for the largest rice company in the country, Trukai Industries Limited, its CEO was optimistic that this step by government to engage more with the private sector was a step in the right direction for the future of agriculture in Papua New Guinea.
I think what that emphasises is that we're already starting to talk the same story. And I think you can see that the private sector and the government is coming together at a rapid pace over this issue of agriculture in the country. I think it's fantastic.
12 vehicles for the Tewai-Siassi district in Moriba province were found and recovered in Lae during a 2-week operation by the district administration and Lae police. In 2012, 17 vehicles were purchased in Lae by the former district administration but did not reach the Tewai-Siassi district. Local MP Dr. Kobe Bomareo says the 5 other vehicles are yet to be retrieved.
These are the Tewai-Siassi district vehicles that were purchased in Lae by the previous administration to deliver services in the Tewai-Siassi district. The vehicles were recovered in Lae and few from outside of the city. The search for these vehicles was done within a 2-week operation by Lae police and the current Tewai-Siassi administration. The search follows the call of the member for Tewai-Siassi to the former administration to return the district's assets 3 months ago. These vehicles never reached Tewai-Siassi district. They have been in Lae since they were purchased 5 years ago.
These cars were bought and kept in Lae on the interest of peasants. Peasants who have got whatever interest or keeping the car or yet na. This car reach him district level or elderly level, help him walk on the ground.
The cost of these 12 vehicles, including 5 others yet to be retrieved, was to the value of more than 3 million kina. Dr. Bomareo says there is only 1 vehicle operating in the district. He said it would have all district assets deliver service to the people of Tewai-Siassi.
Plan long, bringing back district out of turmoil, putting on the roadmap and recuperating all the assets. Now, today, me can talk to me on some district with former administration, the district, got asset registry. Me ask him asset registry couple of times through my former DA, through the former admin officers, all not provide him, which means that literally no got. So what I have to do is me go ahead and pick him out the car through long police unit.
The vehicles were not in a good state when they were recovered. Some of the parts were missing, including the vehicle's windscreen. Only 4 vehicle keys were found out of the 12 retrieved. The other vehicles were towed by police to the Department of Works. Dr. Bomario said the case is a police matter and people in possession of the vehicles would be responsible for the damages caused.
Now we will make sure that usat pin holim car style possession long and by feeling full possible law will get him to answer. It means to pay him cost and by pay him cost, but we'll make sure by black cement through the court.
Julie Badui Owa, National EMTV News, Ley.
The newly appointed acting provincial administrator for Southern Highlands Province, Thomas Eluh, and the provincial police commander, Joseph Tondop, say they will clean up the election mess in the province. Mr. Eluh told the people of Southern Highlands last Friday in Mendi to ensure normalcy is restored, as he has a vast experience in restoring peace and good order. Both Eluh and Tondop say they do not have any association with any politicians to take up their posts within the province.
A forum was held at Kumin Catholic Mission in Mendi last Friday to discuss the reopening of Agiru Center, which was closed during the 2017 national elections. Present was the acting provincial administrator Thomas Eluh, the new PPC Joseph Tondop, and the people of Southern Highlands. The youth agreed to return the key to the acting PA for public servants to return to work, but that did not eventuate. Mr. Eluh told the youths that he needed the key to occupy his office so that he can clean up the election mess and for work to begin.
Do you know associate one time of the politician? Never. In my life, I'm here as a neutral person. Because me harim karai blue you plan. We look in place and pull up the corruption. Landy heavy stuff. I'm challenged Lumina. I want transparent and accountable people to work.
Mr. Eluh said the first thing he will do is audit the provincial government's account. With the help of Fraud Squad, they will investigate any false claims or corruption that has taken place. Public servants who have taken office through backdoor deals will be terminated and position vacancies will be advertised. Mr. Eluh told the people that he will be acting for 3 months just to clean out corruption, as he is a strong corruption fighter. With the assistance of the new PPC, they will reopen services such as the domestic airport, commercial banks, schools, hospitals and others.
Officer, how about service come up? How about public service come work? How about PEC comes down and burking budget you mean? Scaling long addressing one kind of heavy you make. Or some na when all differences do you plan? Politics do you plan me appreciating.
Last Wednesday, police in Southern Highlands hosted the welcome parade of the new PPC Chief Superintendent Joseph Tondop. PPC Tondop has called on the community to work together with him and the PA to bring stability and the delivering of government services into the province. Tondop moved to Mendi 2 weeks ago after the police commissioner, Gary Baki, had announced changes to the constabulary's top ranks. PPC Tondop formed a restoration committee to find solutions to the current law and order problems affecting Mendi town.
Very strong, the provincial government will come in and business houses will pick up and will progress as a province to the next level.
PPC Tondop and Mr. Eluh will work together to restore peace and good order in the province. The acting PA said he wants transparent and accountable people to work with him to be able to restore normalcy within these 3 months. Vasinata Yama, National EMTV News, Mount Hagen.
The Internal Revenue Commission and the Madang Provincial Government have signed a Memorandum of Understanding to improve tax revenue collection. The MOU paves way for both parties to help each other with resources as well as tax awareness to business houses in Madang. IRC Commissioner General Betty Palazzo says the provincial government has ground knowledge to help improve tax compliance by business houses in Madang.
General Commissioner for IRC Betty Palazzo says through the MOU they can work together in getting all the businesses to register for a tax identification number. The businesses can lodge all their returns and make their payments so that it brings in more revenue to the government. It will also help the provincial government in terms of the goods and services tax. Palazzo says if the GST generated is more, Madang's share of GST coming back to spend will also increase.
So overall we're looking at working together to increase revenue for the province and also for the government, the national government.
Businesses who do not lodge their tax returns on a monthly basis are penalized, or when payment is due they have to pay. Otherwise, an additional tax is paid on top of the base tax.
To avoid that, if we work together and make them comply, then they don't have to pay penalties.
Deputy Provincial Administrator Paul Ito says the MOU will help the Madang provincial government discover ways of raising internal revenue for the province.
Their authority, they have acts and laws, so we cannot go in there by ourselves and knock on the doors for private sectors to, give us access to records and information, especially on taxes.
Ito says Madang does not have a good revenue base. The provincial government is operating on an average of 20 million kina and wants to improve on their revenue collection. General Commissioner Betty Palazzo says Madang generates at least 30 million kina, but it can be more than that figure given that the province has a lot of business operating. However, most companies pay directly to the head office or through their tax agents. Thus, it would not be very clear if the tax were generating from Madang. Mata Luis, National EMTV News, Madang.
18 families of Hanabada village who were affected by the August fires have been each presented with 2,000 kina vouchers thanks to the Brian Bell Group of Companies. Chief Executive Officer Cameron McKellar handed over the checks to families and said Brian Bell understands that the families have lost everything in the fire and so the company wanted to help. The families have been living in tents while waiting for their houses to be built by contractors.
For the families who lost their homes to the fire, the vouchers are an extremely valuable early Christmas blessing. The families have been living in tents along the roadside as they wait for building contractors who are working on their new homes.
I see that as a very important sort of step, I guess, in the process of rebuilding. We know the great work that Dadi and the community is doing to rebuild those 18 households, and importantly you get into those homes as quickly as possible, and this is just a small gesture on behalf of the Brian Bell Group in order to settle you back into your homes. As most families would have lost everything, this is a small contribution to rebuilding your homes, and hopefully a very important one for you. So on behalf of the Brian Bell Group, our family, our business, all of our team members and employees, we want to say good luck to you and hope that you get to enjoy these as we want you to.
Aruatao, one of the fire victims, was grateful for Brian Bell's gesture. She was away in Townsville, Australia when the fire completely took her house. She returned on Monday upon hearing of the fire over the weekend, only to find ashes of what she and her family once called home.
So thank you very much for what you have presented to us today. It's really a blessing from our good Lord. May He also bless you too for presenting these things for each and every one of us.
Although progress has been slow for the rebuilding of the houses, some houses have managed to get posts for the foundation of their houses, while some will build on reclaimed land. Hanubada Fire Appeal Committee and Chairman Dadi Toka Jr. said the decision will be by the affected families as they are the signatories to the account.
We've got over 900,000 in the account now, which is more than sufficient enough for us to proceed with what we need to as far as rebuilding homes is concerned. The families have agreed. Everything has been done on a committee basis where the families affected sit in, and the decisions are made based on what they would like to see. Okay, so we're very, very fortunate, and I think, I thank every individual, every organization, community, churches, and especially, the corporate sector that have stood up and came forward to our plea for help in rebuilding these houses at Hanobara.
Stacey Yalo, National MTV News.
You're watching National MTV News. We go for a break now, but when we come back, among the stories, national government partners with a Chinese company for the development of the Highlands Economic Corridor. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National MTV News. Tsunamis have been generated by a powerful earthquake in the South Pacific Ocean. The magnitude 7 quake sent waves up to a meter above the high tide level towards New Caledonia and Vanuatu. People on Vanuatu were urged to get to higher ground. It's the second earthquake to hit the area in 24 hours and a third in a month. This morning's quake was the most powerful, but it was relatively shallow, just 10 kilometers below the surface. There have been no reports so far of serious damage. Environment Minister John Pundari has commended Fiji for the conference presidency of the COP23 meet in Bonn, Germany. During his speech at the closing of the meeting, Minister Pundari reaffirmed the national government's support in combating climate change and said the topic will be a key agenda of next year's APEC meeting. He also commended the efforts of other countries and said the international community must embrace the spirit of the Paris Agreement and put in motion domestic and global processes in combating climate change.
It's now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. John Thomas Pundari.
Speaking on behalf of Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, Minister Pundari thanked the people of Bonn and Germany for their hospitality and also congratulated Fiji Prime Minister Frank Bainimarama for the conference presidency.
Mr. President, you have indeed brought the Pacific to Europe and beyond through the COP23.
He says PNG will have its say on climate change come 2018 when the country hosts the APEC summit.
Papua New Guinea will host the Pacific APEC 2018, where climate change will be a key agenda. This will complement the exposure of not only the ravages of the adverse impacts of climate change in the Pacific region, but also underscore the Pacific way of resilience and the importance of investing in our efforts to protect our people and natural assets.
Minister Pundari then adds the high-level delegation and world leaders not to lose momentum and commitments in combating climate change, while stressing the importance of implementing the Paris Rulebook, which has 4 references from PNG.
The establishment of the Rulebook is fundamentally important. However, the Rulebook must not become a complex and difficult barrier that prevents easy access to the support that is needed to deliver mitigation and adaptation efforts nationally and globally to combat climate change.
The COP meets every year, in which UN-recognized countries meet to discuss and review policies in combating climate change. PNG was represented by a delegation from the Climate Change Authority, the Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Climate Change.
We must be sincere to our commitments and mean what we say and not be pretenders of goodwill. You can count on my country's support in our collective work to lower carbon footprints.
Stanley Ove Jr., National MTV News.
The Departments of Health, Agriculture and Environment have collectively launched a national action plan on antimicrobial resistance. The aim of the plan is to learn and understand the use and management of antibiotics in the areas of agriculture, livestock and human consumption of medication. Creating online pledges and school visits in the last 7 days by the Department of Health today ended with an action plan launch in partnership with Agriculture and Livestock and Conservation and Environment Protection. Manager Pharmaceutical Services Vali Karo says getting the attention of the general public on the use of antibiotics will be their #1 priority. He says providing accurate information on antibiotic consumption to the general population is necessary, adding individual family members should also become advocates to proper use of antibiotics.
So I think that's something that we should take note of, and try and do our bit as individuals. That if a one-talk comes looking for antibiotic, we should tell them it will only be given on a written prescription by a doctor.
Bali stressed that people need to understand that antibiotics should only be prescribed by the doctor and should not be taken from elsewhere. He says many users are ignorant to taking prescriptions, and due to this, most times medication is overused, causing bacteria to become resistant to it, meaning treatments will not work. Vali alluded antibiotics should not be shared among family members.
As an individual, you make a pledge stating that you must use antibiotics wisely and not to misuse antibiotics. So the onus is on each individual, and then you can take it to the next level as an organization. What are you doing as an organization?
Seeking doctor's advice or from a health professional is always the way forward when taking antibiotics, and those needing antibiotics for domestic or commercial animals should always go to a qualified vet, and the same applies to farming crops.
And the Department of Agriculture and Livestock, they deal with obviously the livestock and also like sometimes aquaculture, so and they also use antibiotics as well. Like
Bali's advice when dealing with antibiotics: always handle with care, and when planning to buy antibiotics, think twice and seek advice first. Godwin Eki, National MTV News. Over 1,000 people from the Umi Adzera local level government in Makam district now have birth certificates and NID cards. They registered through the assistance of an association engaged in recording the community census before NID was introduced in Morobe province. Community Development Provincial Advisor Kyun Kimbing says this was the first rollout project of mobile registration service within the districts.
This is Mitsing village in Umi Adzera local level government of Makam district, Morobe. Members of the media in Leh were invited to attend this community's NID registration on the weekend. Members of the community gathered to witness 1,391 people from the LLG who received their birth certificates and NID cards from Morobe's Division of Community Development. The event was successful through the assistance of an association from Mitsing village called Ngasam Assam community-based organization.
Like community themselves they only looking need long having that NID program or having this identification program belong inside the community of people belong also. It was from their own intervention, own approach belong on Lugimna. They want to use that community organization belong or registering all members belong.
In 2013, some members of Mitsing village formed the organization. The association then established a database by registering the people as a community initiative. This made it possible for the association to facilitate the NID mobile service in the LLG last year that registered 540 people with birth certificates and NID cards.
First birth certificate where NID no been come yet. Some people have been involved with this. Some people have data system don't plan, and play they run him on birth certificate don't play yet. By that time, then government is in this, then NID come inside. So time people go through long NID now. People are Muslim. Something people he come up in business, help him plant him.
In September this year, Leh's MTV News interviewed Kimbing on the division's plan to increase the manpower and resources in order to deliver service on time.
Well aware of that staffing issue, and they're working on that, and we acknowledge that too. They would sooner or later advise us on that.
Last week, we asked the Minister for National Planning and Monitoring if the department could support the NID mobile service rollout in districts of Morobe.
But I'm happy to announce that government will provide more funding in the 2018 budget to not only roll out the NIDs in the towns and cities, but we're going to start looking at district rollouts. We need to send mobile teams to the districts to start rolling out so we can reach the rest of the country.
The member for Markham, Connie Iguan, says he will support the association's initiative to roll out the program in Markham district. Julie Badui Owa, National EMTV News, Leh.
The national government has entered into an important partnership with the China Railway Group of Company as part of the Highlands Economic Corridor Development Program. A signing ceremony was held this morning with 2 Memorandum of Understandings and Memorandum of Agreement. Projects include the High Priority Economic Road Project and Integrated Agricultural Industrial Parks in the Highlands.
Following the recent APEC summit in Vietnam, the government of PNG is now adapting itself to the Chinese president's Belt and Road Initiative. This is to bring economic benefit and service delivery in the country between the governments of PNG and China.
It is important because it comes under a very visionary policy initiative of the Chinese government, especially the President of China, Xi Jinping, on the One Belt, One Road initiative. This initiative is building infrastructure in many parts of the world. And Papua New Guinea is very fortunate that we are at the end of this belt and we are part of this initiative that the President of the great nation of China has introduced. Many of the projects that have been listed here today and the MOA has been signed, particularly are very important projects because they will continue to change the lives and improve the standard of living for people in many of the provinces in the region.
The first signing ceremony was a memorandum of agreement for the PNG-China Integrated Agricultural Industrial Park that will be based in the Eastern Highlands and Western Highlands provinces. This project comes at $330 million. This was signed by both the Eastern Highlands and Western Highlands provincial governments, Chinese dignitaries including Chinese Ambassador Zhu Bing and China Railway President Zhang Zhongyan. The agreement of the park is for the provincial government to allow the Chinese government to utilize state land to build agricultural parks for livestock and crops processing. The project in Eastern Highlands Province will utilize 150 hectares of land, while 170 hectares in Western Highlands Province. While a memorandum of understanding was signed for the high-priority economic road projects that will bring important missing road links around the country, an upgrade of port infrastructures. One of these roads includes the Baya to Medang Road. Another significant project for the Eastern Highlands Province is the upgrade of the town's water supply. This too was signed under another memorandum of agreement. With the signing of the projects, Chinese Ambassador to PNG Zhu Bing says these projects of high priority need implementation as they will bring many benefits. Projects under the MOAs and MOU will be carried out by the China Railway Group under their subsidiary company Kovac PNG. Merlin Diaukatam, National EMTV News.
And now a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3115 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.304, $0.3982 Australian dollars, $0.254 euro, and 33.73 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, copper closed higher, gold is trading lower, while coffee and cocoa closed the day lower. Crude oil is trading higher, copper closed higher, while palm oil closed the day lower. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed 100 points lower, the ASX is down 11 points, and the All Ordinaries down 10 points. Here with National EMTV News, we go for a break now. When we come back, stories making headlines overseas. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas now, it's 70 years of marriage commitment for Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Today is their anniversary. It's noted the Queen would rely on Prince Philip for advice before delivering speeches.
And the Queen would rely on Prince Philip's advice before delivering important speeches.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons.
Valuing his honesty in a world filled with deference.
And his number one job from the word go has been to, quotes, support the Queen. Everything he does is in support of the Queen. And it's just been one of the great royal romances, I think, of history. People talk about Victoria and Albert as a phrase, it just trips off the tongue, and I have no doubt that in years to come people will talk about Elizabeth and Philip in exactly the same way.
For 7 decades, the royal couple faced some of monarchy's biggest and most challenging moments together. And behind the scenes, the Prince remains, in the Queen's own words, her strength and stay.
Across the USA, rising healthcare costs are causing hospitals to close, and this is most prevalent in rural areas. Some entire communities do not have access to emergency care, such as the case in Tonopah, a small isolated community nestled in the Nevada desert. The town is more than 100 kilometers and hours away from the nearest hospital. Residents are forced to rely on each other in times of crisis.
Erie, Maine.
Dispatch, Medic 11. Buckle up, Missy.
This is the EMS crew of Tonopah, a small mining town in the middle of Nevada that 2,400 people call home. There's no professional ambulance service here, and Tonopah's only hospital closed its doors for good in 2015.
Medic 11's on scene.
So local residents have taken matters into their own hands. Dawn Goodmanson is one of several volunteer EMTs who act as the community's only lifeline.
It's scary. It's scary to live here. I'm scared for our residents. I'm scared for my family.
When Tonopah's hospital closed, the entire county, an area roughly the size of the U.S. state of Massachusetts, was left without any emergency medical care. Any area that's more than 30 miles away from a hospital is known as a hospital desert. Tonopah, it's more than 200 miles from emergency trauma care.
If you need trauma care, you're looking at either Reno or Las Vegas, which is 3.5 hours by vehicle. You know, I know of some people that did not make it on the transport. They expired en route.
My aunt, she had a lot of medical problems, and we weren't able to get her to a higher level of care quick enough. So she passed in our ambulance. It was just hard. Like, she taught us how to be EMTs, and then we were working on her, and there was just nothing more that we could do. And if we would have had a hospital, they have years of knowledge, and it would have been different.
Dawn is bringing her latest patient to the airport, but by the time the plane arrives from Las Vegas, they've already been waiting on the tarmac for 2 hours. This is increasingly the reality of living in rural America. If you get injured or you get sick, you have to be driven to the airport so you can get flown to a hospital hundreds of miles away.
I think that because we're so rural, people tend to forget about us. Why are we not worthy of health care? We're people too. We need help.
A leading dental expert in New Zealand says half the country's adults are putting off going to the dentist because it's too expensive. Former Prime Minister Helen Clark also called for more funding to make visiting a dentist more affordable.
It's no fun seeing the dentist, but for many the biggest pain is trying to pay for it.
About half of New Zealand's population had put off dental treatment that they knew that they needed because of the cost.
Afghan refugee Sher has been in New Zealand for 5 years and couldn't afford to see a dentist until now.
So I have got a couple of bad teeth that needs to be fixed.
This is what his teeth used to look like. Now, thanks to charity dentist Revive a Smile, he's had $850 worth of treatment for free.
This feels quite good for me. It's like a help that I get for free, and then it's a great job these guys are doing.
We see really third world type problems. We're seeing people who have been suffering for many, many years that haven't had any access to dental care.
According to Otago University, the average hourly rate for a dentist is $460. Someone on the minimum wage would need a week's earnings to get an hour with a dentist. Decorated researcher Jonathan Broadbent says it's time to stop treating adult dental care like a luxury.
Dental problems cause pain, embarrassment, worry, just like any other health problem. Yet we set dentistry apart from other health problems.
Heavyweight backing came when former Prime Minister Helen Clark got on Twitter. I hear very concerning reports of those who end up with serious dental problems because they cannot afford regular checkups. She went on to say, time for a major government initiative on the right to dental care. But the current Prime Minister conceding even a sugar tax wouldn't be enough to cover extending or subsidising free adult care.
Under 18s is already free. And so that's something I want to make sure that people are taking up. But at the moment, our ability to fund it beyond that is pretty constrained.
Meaning low-income earners like Cher may still need to look to charities for a smile like this.
To Zimbabwe now, and Robert Mugabe has shocked millions of Zimbabweans and the world after refusing to resign as president. His own party had earlier sacked him, giving him less than 24 hours to resign or be pitched. This afternoon, though, he's still technically in power.
After the military's non-coup, tonight the president's non-resignation. He shook hands with his captors and then destroyed a nation's hopes that he would stand down.
I am confident that from tonight our whole nation at all levels gets refocused as we put shoulder to the wheel.
The generals looked perplexed. Mugabe rambled on.
Of greater concern, may I read this again? I beg your pardon.
But then insisted he would lead the conference of his ZANU-PF party next month.
I will preside over its processes, which must not be prepossessed by any acts calculated to undermine it.
That's the same party that a few hours earlier had fired him. For years they've danced happily to the president's tune. Today they decided the music for Mugabe must stop. Go now, they cried.
These are the people who get Mugabe in power for decades. Suddenly a room full of sycophants and cheerleaders have been transformed. They want him out.
We have a trust in our president, not knowing that he is surrounded by thugs.
In the gentle afternoon light of Harare, there were prayers for peace. Many are tasting freedom for the first time in their lives.
I've never felt free. I've never felt like I could actually say what I really think about anything at all. Today,
do you feel free now?
I do feel free.
But tearing down the Mugabe posters is easier than prizing his fingers from office.
You're watching National EMTV News. We go for a break now. When we come back, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Whilst the late arrival of teams and technical glitches caused delays in day one of the competition, Touch Rugby looks set to commence competition. Touch 40 competition manager Martin Joshi said the playing field is suitable to cater for both the men's and women's matches, with a total of 13 teams participating, beginning on Wednesday.
After much anticipation and hype surrounding the 7th BSP PNG Games, the biennial event got off on a rather gloomy start, with most games postponed to tomorrow and Wednesday due to the late arrival of participating teams. Most of the allocated venues were left empty today, despite the actual overall competition schedule indicating more than 8 sporting codes to commence proceedings today. Hockey was about the only code that started a little late, but managed to begin competitions, but was also disturbed by the rain. Touch Rugby, like the other delayed sporting codes, will kick off with the mixed division on Wednesday.
Next week I'll do the men's and women's, should be all good.
How long are we expecting the competition to run before it concludes?
As per the schedule, we're supposed to run the duration of the whole 2 weeks. So in line with that, I'm just doing some adjustments, just to give chances to all teams to come in to participate.
Late arrival of teams was a contributing factor that resulted in amendments made to the game schedules by technical officials. The Vice Minister for Sports, Wesley Raminai, also admitted that delays and technical glitches in such event was inevitable.
Sometimes things don't fall in place as we may expect, but eventually after a few days we should be able to pick up and it should go on. Yeah.
However, the games are expected to pick up pace tomorrow when most competitions resumes. Shane Saroya, National EMTV Sports, Kimbe.
To cricket overseas, Nathan Lyon has lit the Ashes fuse, declaring Australia can complete a series sweep over England, and the Aussies have enlisted the fastest man at all times to help.
Cricket's version of question time in Brisbane. Virtually anything was on the table, and with debate over the Aussies' aggression, Pat Cummins explained it'll be one in, all in when things get fiery.
I guess a bit of a spoken truth, you know, one of us going hard, we'll all be going hard, and we're all super competitive once we're out in the field, so I'm sure you'll see us get a bit snarly out there.
The injury-prone paceman is looking forward to his first test on Aussie soil.
It feels 6 or 7 years where I've been sitting on the couch watching as a fan.
Keeper Tim Payne pulled on the gloves for the Aussies' first session on the Gabba. Australia's most controversial selection, Payne reflected on his test debut alongside fellow debutant Steve Smith 8 years ago.
He's changed a lot, he's much better looking now. But yeah, look, it is quite funny that, you know, Steve's obviously kicked on from that moment, and my road's been a little bit harder.
The Aussies hoping the series won't be a photo finish, aiming for 5-0.
Yeah, definitely, that's what we're aiming for. If we don't aim for that, there's something wrong with us.
Usain Bolt knows about an unblemished record, the 8-time gold medalist and keen cricketer offering up tips.
To the ball, 4 runs.
Batting's not his real go.
I think I would do the fast, but I'm not playing cricket right now.
Teaching guys like Aaron Finch and Glenn Maxwell to run faster between wickets.
You got to have an intense look. That's a money shot.
We'll go for a break now, but we'll have more of Trukai Sports when we return. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To the Women's Rugby League World Cup, the Oil Search PNG Orchids have bowed out of the women's competition after losing to Canada. They lost 22 points to 8 in yesterday's match in Sydney.
And Butler signals time on. We are underway as conditions here become quite dark.
The Oil Search PNG Orchids were the first to post points. 10 minutes into the match after an overlap putting Christine Bulhage in space to cross over in the left corner.
Player in jersey 14, Christy Bulhage, getting across in the corner.
A failed conversion kick from Martha Cole saw the score at 4-0.
There's a kick that's not too good.
Canada hit back few minutes later after a strong run from centre Natasha Smith bursting through PNG's defence to score.
We may be going to the video referee for the first time. No, he's going to point to the spot.
A successful conversion kick put them in the lead.
Ontario, the home. And look at that. Straight as an arrow from wide out. Great kick. The Ravens hit the front.
Smith scored her second try 5 minutes later in a similar fashion to her first.
Another one. Natasha Smith, definitely no doubt about that one. I'm sure the referee will point to the spot.
The score remained 10-4 at half-time. In the second half, the Orchids were the first to post points through Martha Cole, keeping them in the game.
On the outside, it comes to Martha Cole, and PNG are going to get another try.
Another failed conversion attempt and the scores remained 10-8. The Canadians ran in 2 more tries through Smith, who bagged a hat-trick, and McDade.
Behind them, oh, it's going to come up trumps. I think it's McDade that's grabbed it. McDade for Canada. The kick was a beauty.
This put them in a comfortable 8-point lead. PNG struggled to get back in the game with only a few minutes left to play.
Milking, go 1. So 9 out, PNG. a big task here.
Canada went on to win 22 points to 8, qualifying for the semi-finals. They now face Australia on Wednesday.
Close range, and she gets another World Cup try.
Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
And there is still hope for the New Zealand League fans in the Women's Rugby League World Cup. The Kiwi Ferns thrashing Pacific neighbours, the Cook Islands, with wingers scoring 6 tries in the Pool B clash. The win put them on top of the pool with 126 cumulative points. And that's it for True Kai's Sports. We'll go for a break. When we come back, the weather forecast for the next 24 hours.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours in the southern region. Mostly fine for Port Moresby, fine, becoming windy for Daru. Brief showers expected in Kerama and Alota, evening showers in Popondetta.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
And that's the news, sports and weather for today, Monday the 20th of November 2017. On behalf of the EMTV News team, pleasant viewing. Good night.